Hi everyone, it's John from What Up. Welcome back to another video. Today we're taking a look at episode 6 for the third season of The Wheel of Time. We're breaking it down and we're talking about differences between the books and the show. So we'll talk about the storylines in the episode, where the differences lie, where they're the same, where things are amalgamated, and where they kind of got inspiration from some of the bits of the storyline. So if you love The Wheel of Time as much as I do, if you're excited about the third season, or if you just want to keep up with all of the Wheel of Time news, consider making us your home for Wheel of Time news. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, and of course, tell all your friends. Now, of course, since we are doing a breakdown, all of my breakdown videos are full book spoilers. I know some people out there are like, well, you could do less spoilers or no spoilers for these videos. These are all book spoilers. These videos are geared towards two separate types of people. First type of person is the person who doesn't care about spoilers in the books, has never read the books, and just wants to know where certain things come from in the show or things that are different. The second type of person is the type of person that has read the books, but maybe a long time ago, and they can't quite remember certain instances of things that went on. This will just jog your memory a bit. So in other words, we're doing a full book spoiler video for my breakdown, just like the other breakdown. So if you haven't read the entirety of The Wheel of Time, that is The Eye of the World, Through the Memory of Light, 14 books by Robert Jordan and Brandon Sanderson. Be forewarned, I'm going to ruin plot points, character arcs from both those mediums. And of course, we're talking about the show, so we're going to ruin stuff from the show. Now, let's jump into the episode and we'll start breaking it down. Another masterful cold open, folks. So this one, Liandrin basically is getting back to her captors and her tormentors. She kills them and escapes, runs down to the port of Tanchico, and she falls asleep under the collared man, the statue. And when she falls asleep, she meets up with the Shamiel. Now, this doesn't come from anything in the books. It's another one of those fleshed out things that happen likely off page, but we're not 100% sure, with Liandrin's backstory. Robert Jordan did a great aspect in writing a lot of parts of his books, and this is a part I'll argue forever. He was not really great at writing well-rounded antagonists. They were very 2D, they had very little motivations, they were bad for a large part of it, sake of being bad. You never felt anything for them, they were just bad. And fantasy was like that at the time, and some fantasy is still like that now. The show is doing this one better, where they're taking some of these characters, especially characters that have pledged to the shadow, and fleshing them out. So seeing Liandrin's backstory like this, not in the book series at all, but it does give you a lot of context and information, not only about her backstory and her character making you feel something for it, but here we're seeing a Shamiel. And we know a Shamiel was not free at this time. This was 90-some years before the beginning of the first episode. And he wasn't released until sometime during that episode, at least a little bit tormenting the boys, and then released at the very end of season 1, episode 8. So there was a lot of questions for people who watch the shows. Well, how can he be here this early? Well, it's one of those cyclical things. Every so many thousand years, Shamiel was able to be released for a period of about 40 years or so, just to wreak havoc and torment on the world, because he wasn't fully trapped. He was trapped very near the surface of the Dark One's prison, so he could still touch the world. And he did so a number of different ways over the eons. We'll have to do a whole video on just that when the season ends, talking about how that happened, how he shaped history leading up to these moments in the book series. But yeah, so this does give some good contextual information about the books while fleshing out a character that a lot of people really love and love to see. Next, we cut to Liandrin and the Black Aja in Tanchico, and they're talking about the object of power that they need to get to control Rand al'Thor. Basically, it's an Adam for a man who can channel. And you can see Malkedian kind of in the background floating around, being a servant to them, giving out their food, and we've seen her just being generally creepy, spitting in the food, ripping up their clothes, all kinds of wild stuff. So this storyline does come, these scenes do almost come directly from the books. They're not 100% there, but they are inspired very much by Liandrin's time with the other Black Aja members in Tanchico. Now, during the book series, she's also courting Joachim Carradine, who is a Whitecloak that is in Tanchico as well, and trying to get the Whitecloaks to come in and take over Tanchico, which ends up to at the end of the book, a big battle in Tanchico between Whitecloaks and the Seanchan. Now, in the show, the Seanchan are left out of the Tanchico storyline, and so are the Whitecloaks. We don't see either one of them. We've seen Joachim Carradine earlier on in an episode where he was turned into a Grey Band by Malkedian, so we know that he is canon in the show. He's just not part of the storyline. So in the book series, basically, Liandrin comes back from a meeting with Carradine, one of the Whitecloaks, back to her house, I guess you'd say, noblewoman's house, where she's with the other members of the Black Aja, and they discuss a few things. They discuss Rand al'Thor, the Forsaken, the Whitecloaks taking over Tanchico, and they also discuss the object of power that could possibly call a romantic channel. Now, these are the domination bands. It's two Adams. Well, it's one Adam with two bracelets and one collar meant for a man. So we see all of that here, them discussing this, and we see Monkheady kind of floating around in the background pretending to be a servant. And she is. She's a servant in the book series too, Glyden. And she is essentially doing pretty much the same thing. Hiding, being mistreated by them, taking it all in, and then she gets her revenge later on. Either way, this is a great kind of synopsis and summary of that entire plot line where they're talking about getting this object of power within one particular scene within the show. All right, I want to talk a bit about the members of the troupe here in Tanchico. So we have Nynaeve, Elaine, Matt Cawthon, Min, and we eventually see Thom Maryland, which we're going to see here in a little bit near the end of the episode. But in the Tanchico storyline of the books, it's a little bit different. So things are essentially the same. The overall storyline is that people are in Tanchico and they're looking for the domination bands because they're going to hurt Rand. The people that go to Tanchico in the books are Nynaeve, Elaine, Thom Maryland is with them initially. He doesn't meet them in the city like he does in this episode. And a man named Julian Sandar. Think of him like a private investigator. That's essentially what the best way to describe what he does is. And while they're there, they meet Bail Damon, which we've already seen in the show a couple of different times. He runs, he's sort of a smuggler that's running a boat. We last seen him in season 2, episode 8, and a Shanchan woman named Egwen. She is under a pseudonym, a different name, and she meets the troupe, and she's with Bail Damon, and they sort of make friends. Now, Nynaeve eventually finds out she's Shanchan and just hates her for it, but hates the fact that she likes her even more, if that makes any sense at all. We don't see any Shanchan, at least we haven't seen any Shanchan so far this season. I think that's a pretty smart move based on the show's thoughts, because there's a lot of parallels between the Falm storyline and the Tanchico storyline, insofar as that we have Whitecloaks there, we have Shanchan there, and they have a big battle at the end of the books, the end of each storyline, and then everyone escapes. So doing that in a show 2 seasons in a row probably isn't going to be as exciting for the viewer, because it's pretty similar, which is part of the reason I think why we don't have any of the Shanchan in Tanchico, and the Whitecloaks are just kind of cut out of the storyline as well. Now we're seeing some bits of Cold Rock's Hold here. Cold Rock's Hold is in the books. They do travel there. It is before they go to the Golden Bowl, before Rand announces himself as the Kara Karn. And we're meeting a young girl here named Alcera. We've already met her in a previous episode, but we get a little bit more fleshed out story between Rand and her. You make yourself feel a little bit more for her. She becomes important to the storyline later on, and we'll talk about that when we get to it. But essentially, all Cold Rock's Hold is in the book series is 2 things. It's a way of describing Aiel culture, Aiel ways. You get to meet a lot of the major players in the Aiel. You learn a lot about what they do and how things are. And then you have a major battle that happens as well. So right now, this initial meeting where Rand has met everyone there, he is now kind of wandering around with Avienda, getting taught Aiel ways. That does sort of happen in the book series, but not on page. You don't get to see this part of it on page. You see more of the more important bits of it. So this here is sort of just a way of showcasing to the viewer what the Aiel culture's like, how things work, what their holds look like, how they live in the waste, how they farm, how they're not all warriors. Things that have been kind of taken care of at this point via exposition in the book series. But again, these scenes are important for the show, and they set up something for pretty big later on, but they don't happen exactly the same way in the books. All right, so the Karen storyline in the Two Rivers for this episode is sort of an amalgamation of a bunch of different storylines of his in the books and things that happened off page. They had to cut out a few of the major players in this particular storyline, which changes things just a bit. And if they had to film it exactly as it was in the books, it would be like 6 episodes. It really wouldn't be in 1.5 like we're going to see here in the show. So Perrin's injured here, and they go through trying to get Alana Sedai to heal him. However, Alana Sedai is also injured at the same time. While in the Two Rivers, yes, Alana Sedai is there with one of her warders. Perrin is there with Faile. He actually travels to the Two Rivers with Faile, Bane, Chiad, and Loyal, which is different. He met Faile in the Two Rivers at this point, and they've already started forming a bit of a relationship. when they enter the Two Rivers, they go to the inn. They see Marin Elvira, Egwene's mom, and she's like, "You gotta hide." So they take them to a sick house out in the middle of the woods. And from the sick house out in the middle of the woods, they meet Alana Sedai, her warder, as well as Varen Sedai and her warder. Varen is not in this particular storyline. We've seen her in the tower, and I believe she's still there as far as things go for this season. So they've cut down the number of Aes Sedai within the Two Rivers, which is helpful, I think, for reducing the number of people on screen. And they've also used Maxim, Alana's warder, in the place of a couple of other members of the Two Rivers storyline to be able to sort of truncate and collapse the story a little bit, if that makes any sense. So essentially, all the major plot points are here. Perrin does get injured. Perrin does help rescue Matt's sisters. Perrin does get healed by Alana Sedai, but it happens at a sick house outside of the city initially, outside of Elmwood's Field initially, and then again later on in the inn, where he kind of sort of like is holed up and laid up in a room for a bit. And that's where him and Faile really start to connect. There's an actual leaked portion of the script that showcases that exact scene where he falls down the stairs and then Faile kind of like lands on top of him, like just like the book series, and they kiss a bit then. That didn't obviously quite make it into the cut of the show, but same thing. They form a bond while he's injured, and they start their plans of defending the Two Rivers, which is essentially what is happening here. Just a truncated version of what happened in the book series. Now we get to meet Thom Merrilin, fan favorite character. We haven't seen him since season 1. People have been clamoring for him to come back, and I'm going to be honest with you, I love him to pieces, and I can't wait to see more of him in the show. But we're meeting him here in Tanchico in the show. We don't do that in the book series. He came back from the dead, so to speak, a lot earlier in the books than he did in the show, and he traveled with Elaine and Nynaeve with Julian Sandar, like I said earlier, to Tanchico. So he was with them from the very beginning. Here, Matt is meeting him, and he becomes very important in the show storyline for Tanchico because he sort of saves Elaine's skin later on. Elaine really does it herself, but he gives her the opportunity to save herself after she's being manhandled by a few different people in the open night market. Either way, again, nice that we see him here, and this whole scene kind of showcases the meetup with Thom, and then later on it showcases Min and Nynaeve talking a bit, and Min is using her visions to find out where people are. The Black Aja is within Tanchico. Now again, like I said earlier, Min wasn't with them. It was more of Egwen, the Shanshan woman, and Bael Damon who found out where the Black Aja was and what they were really doing in Tanchico and relayed that information. But because they're not here, Min has sort of taken over that role and used her visions instead to figure those things out. Now we're back in the Waste, and Egwene gets sort of a speed run version of learning how to dreamwalk. And it's kind of sort of similar in some aspects to what happens in the book series, but much, much, much faster and truncated a whole lot. So essentially within the book series, she does learn how to dreamwalk from the Wise Ones, but prior to learning how to naturally or organically dreamwalk, she was using a twisted stone Terran Grail ring that was given to her by Varen Sedai. That didn't happen in the show. She just kind of naturally started doing it, and then the Wise Ones trained her. And when the Wise Ones trained her, they trained her very, very fast. And there's a few aspects that we're not really seeing within the world of dreams in the show that we did in the books. So essentially, you have Nynaeve and Elaine in Tanchico. You have Egwene in the Waste, and they're relaying information back and forth about their adventures and things that they're doing, things that can help Rand and whatnot in the world of dreams, all by using Dreamweavers, which are objects of power that allow you to enter the dream world. They were a much bigger portion of the book series than they have been in the show. In fact, I don't think the word Dreamweaver or Terran Grail that can enter the world of dreams has even been mentioned in the show more than in passing. What we do get to see in the show is we get to see her learning how to operate in the world of dreams, which is a big exposition dump for the viewer, which lets us know the rules, or at least some of the rules for the world of dreams. We don't know them all yet. And we get to see the fact that she is powerless against Lanfear, which is entirely book accurate. Lanfear is the best person in the world of dreams in the book series. And there's reasons why, but she is. She's unmatched, unparalleled by anyone at all in the world of dreams. So that's what we're seeing here. We get to see this. We don't really get to see Nynaeve and Elaine conversing with Egwene in the world of dreams, which happens more and more as the book series goes on. They stay apart for a large portion of the book series. This is their way of being grounded and sharing information with one another and learning things and having scenes together in the books, is being in the world of dreams. We're not seeing that in the show, but again, at this point in the show, it's not terribly important. It will become that in further seasons going on, though. We're finally starting to see Moiraine give a little bit here. So she has been to Rhuidean, she's been through the rings, she knows what is to come in her life and some of the things she has to do. That happens in the book series as well, all of that. And this particular conversation between Moiraine and Rand doesn't happen this way in the books, although it kind of does. And it mostly kind of happens within and around Rhuidean before they go to Alcardal. And there is some of it in Colrock's Hold as well. It's a bunch of different conversations all kind of crammed into one. But essentially, Moiraine is at the point in the show where she is starting to know she has to help Rand, and her way may not be the best way, and she's starting to give up control. In the book series, she totally does that. She literally says to someone who comments on it that she's become so docile and does whatever Rand wants that she learned how to control Saedar, which is surrendering to it. So she's surrendering to Rand in the books, and in that way, she has some semblance of control and can guide him because he trusts her. This is what we're starting to see with these conversations in the show. Again, a speed run of it, which is par for the course for the show. We have to have a speed run of this stuff. You can't do this over multiple episodes. It has to be done very quickly. But we are seeing Moraine's attitude change towards Rand initially within this episode. Now we're back to the Whitecloaks, Dane Mournhold, and Natty Cawthon. We'll talk just a bit about that in a moment, but we get to meet another Whitecloak here showing up, Ordeth. Now, Ordeth is Padan Fain. Now, Padan Fain does masquerade as a Whitecloak in the book series, just like he is doing here in the show. And when he does show up, he is dirty, disheveled. All the Whitecloaks with him are dirty and disheveled. They are not the same semblance of order and cleanliness that you'd expect from a Whitecloak brigade. So just seeing him show up here is absolutely fantastic. What he does when he shows up is he does two things. In the book series, he basically is doing everything he can to destroy the Whitecloaks from within. Any patrol that Dane Mournhold leads, he has the Trollocs attack. That's essentially what is going on there. They get attacked and they get killed, or hurt. And in doing that, he's also a big part of the Trollocs and the things that are going on within the Two Rivers, because he has brought them there to be able to sort of destroy the Two Rivers, draw out Rand al'Thor. Dane's there for Perrin. It's a whole thing. In the show, we do see him show up. We see him with Trollocs at the beginning of this episode and Dark Friends. And now we're seeing him with the Whitecloaks, which are essentially the Dark Friends in Whitecloak garb. And he sort of takes some of the same character roles as he does in the book series, as he does in the show. Although in the show, I think he takes a much more larger leadership role when it comes to the Trollocs and things that are going on than he did in the books, at least on page. Now we're going to talk a bit about Natty Cawthon. Now Natty Cawthon in the show was killed. So she was questioned and killed. She was not in the book. She was actually rescued along with her daughters. This is another one of those things where you have major characters that are important, that need to be shown at some point or another within the show, that are really not that important to the overall storyline of the books. So having Natty Cawthon there for the first season, having her show up again with Matt in the second season, and then having her with her girls here in the third season, but then being essentially removed from the show because she's killed, does make a little bit of sense. And so in the fact that she doesn't really show up again in the book series, other than a few lines in passing here and there. She doesn't really work a lot of the storylines, or is not a major part of storylines going forward in the books. So we've seen that already in the show where they're doing that with major characters that are fan favorites, that fans love, that like seeing on screen, but they can't really keep that up for the entire series. The bloat of characters will be too big, and they can't do that in 8 episodes per season. Nor can they pay these people contracts to stay on forever. It's just not going to happen. So that's part of the reason why I believe that she was killed off in the show. But again, yeah, she's not dead in the books, and she survives the attack. She's rescued. She's brought back to Emond's Field with her daughters. All of that still does take place in the books, not in the show. When we get to the musical portion of the episode, this was an unexpected and wonderful surprise for a lot of the fans. And it has some more important meaning, I think, than a lot of people who just watch the show would understand, and it has some connotations to what goes on in the books. So, essentially, in the book series, Elaine is a royal. She is straight and narrow. She has always lived her life prim and proper, but she likes to drink. She likes to carouse. She likes to have fun. She loves to sing. These are all things. There's been a number of references in the books where she's had one too many cups of wine and stood on tables. One in particular where she used a certain terangriel that we are unsure of the uses for, that definitely does manipulate emotion. And it caused her to act as if she was absolutely just three sheets to the wind in a fashion that she would normally do. So there are snippets of that throughout the book series. She loves body songs. She loves like the rough places, things of that nature. So getting her to do this and sing this sort of song on a table in the show is sort of an homage to all those scenes within the book series. And there's not one you can point out. It's multiple scenes all kind of combined together into this one scene for her. But in addition to that, this is the first little bit of interaction that we're seeing between Thom Merrilin and Elaine in the show. Now, in the book series, Thom Merrilin was a court bard to Morghese, her mother, when Elaine was very, very young. But Thom was also Morghese's lover. So in the book series, eventually, she doesn't really know what's going on. She doesn't recognize him. Specifically, but she knows who he is at first a little bit. She's like, oh, you seem familiar. And she actually tries at one point or another in the book series to seduce him a little bit, which was, to me, a little weird, but she did. And then eventually she kind of turns him into sort of a father figure afterwards, when she finds out who he was, who he did, what he meant to her mother, and how she knew him. But anyway, I think this is a breadcrumb to a much larger reveal of their relationship together. And again, her singing on the table here is just an homage to all those little bits of Elaine throughout the books, that she likes to drink, she likes to carouse, she likes to do those things that maybe the daughter heir shouldn't do, which I think was kind of neat. Anyway, a nice little scene. Now we get to see the two girls, Matt's sisters, heal Alana in this particular scene. This doesn't happen in the book series, so we don't get to see them actively learn to use the One Power and use the One Power within the Battle of the Two Rivers, although it's mentioned a few times that they can be incredibly powerful, and they do actually travel to Caemlyn with Alana and Varen Sedai after the Battle of the Two Rivers later on, because they're going to the White Tower because they are so powerful. This here was more of a way to add a second element of healing to this battle, because Alana's got to get hurt. Like, you have to have some element of danger to characters that are in the limelight of the show. So in the Battle of the Two Rivers, Alana and her warder is not they're not exactly central focal points of the Battle of the Two Rivers. In the show, they're used for a lot of exposition, a lot of story building, a lot of world building, a lot of plot building within the Battle of the Two Rivers, which makes total sense. They're also used for a lot of really great spectacle, which we'll see in the next episode, episode 7. In the book series, essentially, they participated in the battle, they healed people, they helped with catapults, making rocks explode, they did a few other things of that nature. They assisted with the rescue of some people, things of that, but they weren't as central as they are in the show. Now, having her being hurt, or having her have the ability to be hurt, does add an element of danger to people that are in the show. And having Matt's sisters heal her does two things. One, it showcases the absolute impressive power of people within the Two Rivers when it comes to the One Power, which is talked about in the book series a number of different times. You have Nynaeve and Egwen coming from there that are just hugely powerful. Rand as well. And then when they recruit from there, they recruit all of these young women who are not quite as powerful maybe as Nynaeve and Egwene, but right up there, because the old blood runs strong through the Two Rivers. So it showcases that. It also showcases the fact that it does make total sense that they would have some sort of talent for healing in the Two Rivers, because they associate this sort of thing with healing. The wisdoms that can listen to the wind, so to speak, in the book series are usually wisdoms who can channel. That's just their way of talking about it. And I'm not saying that these two would have ever become wisdoms, and it was not mentioned in the book series, but it does make sense, kind of showcasing that ability and the way that people in the Two Rivers would think of the power, because wisdoms even though they don't think of them having the one power, some of them can channel, and they use that channeling for healing. So having these people here, it's sort of like a plot armor, I think, more than anything else. Alana can get hurt really badly and get healed. And she get hurt badly again, and she get healed again. And over on repeat to cause big scenes and sort of like gasping moments for the audience. Now we get Perrin and Faile in their first kiss. This is... This made my heart sing, folks. They are my favorite couple in the series. Faile is my second favorite character in the series, and I love their relationship because it's so real, so raw, and so emotional in the books. I really, really do enjoy it. This particular scene, again, didn't happen exactly this way. Perrin didn't tell her that Matt Cotham blew the horn and that she doesn't need to be hunted for the horn in this way, but he does. At some point or another in the book series, she finds out on the way to the Two Rivers, long before they ever became a couple, which happened in Tyr, the events before they traveled to the Two Rivers. She did find out then. So what they're doing is they're sort of speedrunning their relationship right now. So at this point in the book series, they're an established couple. They actually do get married within the Two Rivers. This is a thing that does happen for them during around this time. We don't get to see that, at least so far in the show, because we're just introduced to Faile this season. She has not been around for a while like she was in the book series. But seeing them talk about this, it is basically an amalgamation of a ton of different scenes between Perrin and Faile, how the relationship kind of formed, what she knows, how deep she's in it with him, and then their first kiss here. That happens a long time ago in the books, but it's nice seeing it here. Maybe they don't get married before the Battle of the Two Rivers, but at least they're forming a relationship and whatnot right now, which is great to see. Now, this meeting here between Moiraine, Elaine, and Nynaeve is almost ripped directly from the page. So chapter 46, The Shadow Rising Veils, is where this happens. She weaves Compulsion, and both Nynaeve and Elaine will do anything to please her, tell her anything. So essentially the conversation is pretty much the same. Moiraine sits down, asks them what they know about the Black Aja, asks them what they know about the objects of power they're looking for. There's a few things that she misses out on within looking for information in her rush, like in her haste. She doesn't ask about the stone, doesn't ask about the dream tearing grail they're using to talk to Egwen, which is not a thing in the show. And a few other things. Now, you have to understand that in the book series, it's not just these two alone. Thom is also there. He's talking about the Panarch's palace at this point and talking about the Panarch herself. You have Bel Damon and Egwen. They're both around. When Moiraine comes in, they all kind of leave. And when Elaine and Nynaeve are waiting for Moiraine to come in, because the innkeeper came to them and said, someone's here looking for you, they assumed she was Black Aja looking for them. So as she was walking in, they were preparing weaves of air to kind of scoop her up, shields to put on the Black Aja members, and they're incredibly powerful, and they could certainly overpower any member of the Black Aja, but it's Moiraine. And Moiraine is infinitely more skilled than they are when it comes to this stuff. Maybe not as much in the raw power. Nynaeve is certainly stronger than she is, but she's more skilled. So she sort of defeats that really quickly and compels them and then talks to them for a bit. What we're seeing here is she just kind of walks in, compels them, and then they fall over themselves trying to tell her everything they possibly can about what's going on. And that itself there, this whole scene this could have been written just by pulling the pages of the book and sticking it in the script. Like, it was really, really well done. Now we're back to the Waste, and Egwen is sort of confronting Rand about loving Lanfear. Now, this doesn't happen in the book series. In fact, Egwen and Rand have been over for quite some time in the books. One of the things the show did well is they built up Egwen and Rand's relationship. In the books, yes, they had a relationship. Yes, they were together in the Two Rivers. But essentially, by the time they left Emon's Field, Chapter 10, Leave-Taking in Eye of the World, they weren't a couple anymore. They sort of thought they were. They kind of talked about it. But the relationship was incredibly adolescent, very middle school, as you will. It wasn't a well-formed adult relationship of any sort at all. It wasn't serious in any way, shape, or form, even though back then they thought they'd be married. By the time The Dragon Reborn rolls around, which is the third book in the series, they are fully done. They are over. Egwen has moved on. Rand has moved on, and Rand and Elaine actually start getting together in Tyr in The Dragon Reborn before he goes to the Waste. And then when he's in the Waste, he starts kind of hanging out more with Aviendha, and he never really thought that he'd be with her, but he ends up with her as well. So this is, again, pretty far along in the show for the relationship, but it does make sense because In the show, again, it was a juvenile relationship, and there was not many stakes involved here. So seeing it end in this way in the show, where she finds out about Lanfear and she's like, I'm done with you, and he's like, yes, I was with that person, but I didn't know it was Lanfear until recently, but I still didn't tell you. It puts Rand's walls up, so he doesn't want to let anyone else in, and it makes Egwene mad at him, which is an important thing, especially for as we go further in the books. Egwene is just frustrated with Rand all the time. She really is, but it sets that up nicely. Now we have the introduction of Samael into the Battle of Cold Rock's Hold. So Samael shows up, and he just kicks the crap out of Rand and company, and then not only does he do a little exposition dump about Lews Therin and how he's going to take him out and whatnot. We see two scenes after this, which we'll get into in just a moment. But I want to talk a bit about the book series. So Samael doesn't show up in the Waste at all. Samael in the book series at this point is in Ilion, which is another country, most associated with the Horn of Valir. He is taken over as one of the Council of the Nine, and he has his country to run. He's off by himself. He's setting traps for Rand, and Rand in the book series pretty much owns him when he finally turns his attention to him, but he ignores him for quite some time. Having him show up like this earlier on makes sense, because we haven't even heard of Ilion in the show, and adding more cities and more countries, that's expensive, it's time consuming, and there's more setup involved. So just having him show up here makes total sense. Now, in the book series, there is another Forsaken in the Waste with Rand the entire time, Asmodean. Now, he is sort of masquerading as a gleeman with a traveling caravan of merchants that's going along with them to Alcardal. But we have not seen any of those merchants. We've not seen Asmodean at all. The only Forsaken that we're seeing in the Waste so far is Samael, and he is showing up at Cold Rock's Hold and attacking Rand. Now, in the book series, there was an attack at Cold Rock's Hold, but it was Trollocs, and the Trollocs were there to cover for Drehakar. Drehakar are giant winged bat creatures that kind of swoop in, and they croon at you, they sing at you, and they suck your soul. Think of them like kind of like old school vampires. I guess the best way to put it. They look like big bat creatures. I don't know if you folks remember the bat creature from He-Man with the suckers on his hands. That's what I thought of when I was reading the books when I was young, what they look like. But yeah, they come in, and Rand ends up saving a few people, almost getting killed himself during that attack. No Forsaken involved, just Trollocs covering the use of Drehakar. Now, here we're seeing Samael show up with a bunch of Aiel jump out behind him through his gateway and attack the people in Cold Rock's Hold. So this is one of those things where we're getting the first introductions of Aiel Dark Friends as well, because they definitely are Dark Friends with Samael. And then Rand and him have this sort of like big epic fight. By big epic fight, I mean Rand just deletes him. It's just a whole bunch of lightning bolts come down, hit Samael a whole bunch, destroy him completely, and there you go, right in the background. Boom, 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 boom. Down he goes. The building falls on top of him. One of the things I've seen people talk about online is how they didn't enjoy this. They wanted a more prolonged, a more drawn-out fight between Rand and the Forsaken, and we did get to see that in the first few books, but eventually Rand becomes so OP that he's just deleting people left, right, and center if he wants to. And you can tell he's kind of lost in the sauce at this point here, too, because he's completely involved in the power. So seeing Rand this overpowered this early is, again, one of those speedrun things where we get to see him. He hasn't really learned anything yet. He doesn't know what he's doing. And in the book series, that happens all the time. Before he gets taught how to use the one power, he's just doing stuff without consciously knowing it. And even after he is taught, he still does things that shouldn't be possible, that he doesn't know how to do. They just kind of happen. And then he remembers how to do them later on. He believes that maybe it's Lews Therin, the voice in his head, doing this for him, but he's not 100% sure. He just knows that it happens. And this leads into another really interesting scene here. We're gonna go forward a little bit with Alcera. Alcera was that young girl that we met a few times, and they kind of built her up in her and Rand's relationship. Here he is crying, he is upset, and he ends up drawing the one power to the point of almost hurting himself to try to bring her back to life. This is a scene ripped almost directly from the page, but in my opinion, this scene in the show has way more legs than it did in the books. So essentially, this scene is inspired by a scene in The Dragon Reborn, the third book of the Wheel of Time, when Rand isn't here. A bunch of Dark Friends, Trollocs, Fades, they all attack the Stone of Tyr where he and everyone else is. This is prior to him going to the Waste. He conjures a fire sword because that's what he does best. He's running around kind of slashing Trollocs and whatnot. And he gets mocked by Lanfear. So Lanfear and him, again, they have a relationship in the book series, and she doesn't try to kill him very much, right up until about this point. And then he does something that he doesn't know what he did. He creates this big ball of negative energy almost. It's like a big black roiling ball that shoots out lightning and kills all the shadow spawn in the stone. And then he comes across a young girl. This young girl presumably died during the fighting, is what we all assume. We don't even really know her name. And he just keeps drawing more and more of the power, and he tries to bring her back to life. He makes her heart beat. He makes the blood flow through her veins. He heals up some of the wounds. She's dancing like a puppet in his arms while he's screaming and laughing and crying. And that is essentially what we're seeing here in this scene. And what I'm saying is this scene has a little bit more legs than the book scene is because we don't know who this young girl is in the books. It's sad. It's a horrible moment. But there's no pre-context to it. Like, we don't know who she is. In the show, she's Rurik's great daughter. He's met her. He is toe towards her for sort of making fun of her a little bit, grabbing her spear. And they've established briefly, but they have established a relationship where he was quite tender towards her, and because she's one of the children of the in Colrock's hold. So seeing her dead here and him doing basically the same thing, just wild when it comes to how it tugs on your heartstrings. So again, this scene here, deleting Samael, doesn't happen in the books. Happens in a much different way. He chases him all the way to Ilion and then beyond. We'll get into how the fight ends with Samael later, probably next episode's breakdown in the books. But we have Samael here. He's down. Don't believe he's dead. He is under the rubble, and then we have the young girl, which is a scene pulled almost from the books, except in a slightly different context with some more fleshed out stuff to it. All right, folks. So again, some pretty major deviations, but most of them have to do with the fact that they're speedrunning the series through the show. They're getting rid of some major characters. They're getting rid of some major plot lines. They have to do that. That is totally has to be a thing. For those of you who are not book readers, that have not read the books, and that do enjoy these videos, and I know a large number of you out there are like that, when the season is over, I'll be doing full breakdowns of the books themselves. I'm not going to do it chapter by chapter, and I won't do it book by book either, but I'll be doing it section by section, probably like 2 videos per book, and when we get into the later books, 3 videos, maybe 4, but it definitely won't be chapter by chapter. It'll be plot line by plot line in each of the books to give you an idea of where things are going and how they are, and you can compare that to the show yourself as well. Sort of like a Cole's Notes or a summary of all the books. So yeah, so we have episode 8 arriving tomorrow, the finale of the season. I've got to do my Easter egg video or my breakdown for episode 7. They will likely come in the next few days. Tomorrow you will see my review for episode 8. That'll be released probably sometime in the morning. And then tomorrow afternoon you'll see a second video from me at some point or another. Maybe Friday you'll see a couple of videos, but we'll catch back up. I also have a couple of interviews for you folks as well to release. One is with Yoshi Stradowski, Rand al'Thor himself. He is incredibly knowledgeable in the books, and he is just a treat to talk to. The other gentleman is Robert Strange. Robert Strange plays a character in the 8th episode, and that's all we'll say about that. It was briefly on IMDb, but it is down right now. By the time the 8th episode releases, you'll know who that character is, and I will be get to have a chat with him, which is absolutely fantastic. All right. Thank you all so very much for sticking with me here at the very end, folks. Here's to many more.